Spotlight. In February of this year, the Canterbury District Recorder was invited to place a display in the Beach Creative Galleries in Herne Bay. The event was an exhibition, Blind, A Sixth Sense, by a young visually impaired sculptor, Victoria Clare. The organisers thought it would be a good idea to include organisations supporting the visually impaired. Victoria is an inspiration to all visually impaired individuals, and today she relates her journey so far for us. Victoria is a truly talented person as she talks about her sculpting, sport and music.
Hello, my name is Victoria Clare and I'm a professional artist in contemporary sculpture. I have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which has now claimed a lot of my vision, and I only have 5% vision at the moment, and it is deteriorating. It's a degenerative disease that I was diagnosed when I was 19 years old. I'm now 42, and as I say, I'm night blind, and I also have only 5% vision during the day. So it's something that is very much a constant, adjustable sort of disease for me, where I have to constantly keep moving with it and adjusting to my needs. Being 19 was obviously quite a young age and quite an impressionable time of my life to actually be told I was going to go blind. It was a very hard thing to have to hear, and there was no way I was going to accept it at that particular time of my life. I was in art college and I was studying graphic design, and I had lots of friends, and I was living my life, the way I wanted to live it. And I didn't particularly want to really have to deal with what I'd just been told. So to be quite honest, I think I just was in a state of denial for quite a long time. I went on to study sculpture really because a few years beforehand I happened to pick up a carving book that was actually in a library, and it was just laying on the side of the library on a shelf, and it really made me think, yes, I do really like graphic design, but I want to do something a little bit different. And as it happens, this happened to be my final major project for a course that I was on. And all my tutors thought I was crazy, and they all thought I should stick to graphic design, stay to what I know. But something told me deep inside, no, I want to do something different. So I ignored the teachers and the tutors and went ahead with creating a life-size dolphin, which was created out of wood. This actually was probably the best decision I made, because I got distinctions throughout, and it helped me decide that actually sculpture was going to be my future and graphics wasn't. However, I'd already got onto the graphic design course, which was in West Kent College in Tunbridge. So I committed myself to that course and studied there for 2 years, thoroughly enjoyed it, made lots of friends and had great experiences, and, kind of learnt an awful lot as well. So, but all the while doing this graphic design course, I was coming up with sculptural solutions to the briefs that they were giving us, which was quite interesting because I was somehow getting away with it. So I'm very pleased. So then it was time to carry on with my education. As the course was coming to an end, I applied to Staffordshire University, and that was a figurative sculpture degree. Now, that was quite a prestigious degree because there was only 28 places in Europe, and I was fortunate to win one of those. So, obviously, going off to Staffordshire was something, after I'd just been diagnosed with my disease, retinitis pigmentosa, was something that actually I hadn't really considered would take as much guts to do, if you like. So out of this exhibition, the opportunities and possibilities that have come to me have been quite phenomenal. I've now been asked to do many public speaking engagements, one of which is for the Retinitis Pigmentosa Fighting Blindness UK. They have an annual conference every year in London, and the guy I mentioned, Steve Bate, was the guest speaker in 2017. And as it happens, I'm the guest speaker in 2018, which is an incredible honour and quite a privilege. And I feel that it's an opportunity again for me to use that platform to highlight the greatness that, you know, impairment with vision does not mean that we are not creative people, we are not talented people and inspirational people, because I think you'll find that we really are. And I truly do believe this very statement, that statement is, disability is not an impairment to creativity. But the only thing I would now change to that statement is this: disability is not an impairment to anything, if you're willing to adapt. I also have some appointments with some schools to speak and do some sight awareness with children, which I'm going to be enjoying. I also have future references for Blind a Sixth Sense. So at the moment, it's been looked into to see if it's something suitable that could be put on in a few years at the Turner Contemporary. So that can be very exciting. Wendy Dawes, MBE, who is a wonderful curator and works with many visually impaired and blind people. She's very, very keen to work with me in lots of different ways. Also would like me to go and speak as a professional artist to her KAB groups. I also have a filmmaker who wants to come and make a creative process film about exactly how I create my work and also how I create my music as well. So that should be very exciting. And I've also got 2 commissions to start on, one of which I'm starting in April. So I have quite a busy schedule already, but very thankful for that, because I really didn't expect half of what I've received from this. But also my life, not just as a sculptor and not just as a musician, but the things I enjoy are surfing, snowboarding, skateboarding. All of these 3 things are board sports, and board sports are so freeing within themselves. I mean, I learned how to surf about 3.5-4 years ago, and it's probably, out of sculpting and music, my absolute third passion. And if I had the choice of being in the water or being in my studio, I think I would choose the water, because I feel the freest I ever feel is when I'm surfing. There is absolutely nothing like jumping up on your board and riding a wave. It's just incredible. It's a similar feeling when I'm out on my skateboard. I think I get some very strange looks when I'm out solo skating, because I use my cane out in front of me in my left hand whilst I'm skating, so that I know that I'm safe and I'm not going to hit any obstacles and things. But I would imagine that probably looks quite unusual. Snowboarding is something quite new for me, because we've only just really started learning snowboarding last year with an adaptive snowboard instructor who has actually been specifically trained to work with visually impaired people, and she's fantastic. At the moment she's away, but she will be hopefully coming back in April, and then no doubt me and my husband and my nephew will be donning the slopes and starting our lessons up again. So life in general right now is probably the best it's ever been. I am happy, I am healthy, I am contented, and I'm fulfilled. And for the first time in my life, I can see a future for myself. and that feels amazing. And with that, I'll leave you with this song, inspired by surfing, and it's called Give Me the Ocean. I went on to do the course, but unfortunately within the first few weeks it was very obvious that it was going to be too hard for me, as I had no formal training or no independent skills with living with a visual impairment. I was kind of over my head really, and so unfortunately I had to make an extremely hard decision and I had to walk away from that course. I then came home to my parents, and really I guess I took a couple of years to, as they say, lick your wounds and figure out what it was I was going to do with the rest of my life, because at that moment in time it looked like my world would just blown apart into 1,000 pieces. I lost my driver's licence, my fiance left me, and then I had to leave university. So as you can imagine, that was 3 large hits at once, and it would seem all because of my sight loss. However, after realising that life does go on, and needing to realise that I needed to pick myself up, I thought to myself, okay, I'm losing my sight, yes, but I still have my skills. So I decided to pick up a chisel and mallet again and get sculpting, really. And initially it was for a therapeutic reason, which I found really helpful for me. But then I started to realise that I should be doing this for a career. So I set myself up as a freelance artist and began to work from commissions. Commission-based work hasn't always been my sole work. I've been a teacher, I've been involved with schools, I've been involved with mental health trust, running art classes. So along the years there's always been a teaching and tutoring job as well as doing the commission work, but the commission work has always been going on at the same time. In 1999 I decided that it was time for me to see the world, and to see it with vision that I knew I wouldn't have in later life. So that certainly was a catalyst for me to go travelling. Me and my best friend donned a couple of backpacks and got ourselves over to the States, and we travelled all around the States. We travelled up to Canada, all around Canada. Then we went back down into Mexico and travelled around Mexico, and then ended up in Hawaii, which was amazing. But on those travels, I learned so much about myself and the things that, you know, were stopping me from embracing who I really was. And obviously the sight loss was one of those things that was stopping me. For me to actually go travelling gave me independence, and that was something that I was lacking, I feel. So whilst travelling, I met lots of musicians where we were staying in hostels, and I started playing hand drums and I was singing, and it just grew and grew and grew. And I was invited back to a place in San Diego called Ocean Beach to perform with a group of friends. And that's really when my other love affair started, which is with music. Now I've been involved in music for 20 odd years, and I've been in and out of many, many bands and recorded various albums with various bands. I'm mainly a singer, but most certainly over the last 5 years I've been playing piano, and I've been playing guitar for many years. And I think this is a good time to introduce one of the tracks. My band is called Resonate, and this is a song that I think really sums up where I am with my life right now, and it's called Trust.
You've come so
So after that trip, I literally, within 6 weeks, was involved in another trip, which was another friend of mine that was working out in Italy at the time, teaching mother tongue English. And she knew that I'd just got back from my rather large trip and said to me, would I like to come over and do some teaching? So I jumped on that opportunity and went out to Milan, and we stayed with families in Lake Garda and in Monticelli, and taught the children the mother tongue English within the schools, but also did a lot of the teaching with, for me, most certainly, my job was teaching art and teaching music, which was really, really fantastic. And that actually was a really great experience to engage with children that, don't necessarily speak our language as a first language for them. And music, of course, is a way, and art, I believe, is a way of communicating universally. So I feel that worked really, really well. Once I got back from that particular trip, I started to teach back in England, which was really wonderful. Again, a lot of art-based subjects and music-based subjects. After which, I then decided to do another trip. So off I went to Australia with a backpack on my back and spent the best part of 8 months travelling up the east coast around Australia, which was a really wonderful experience, incredibly challenging in the way that it was done, because we did it on Greyhound buses and in a tent, and it really was sort of a little living life on a beach, eating a coconut at points. But it was one of those experiences that I had a lot of enriching moments. So it's something that I feel I'm glad I did it the way I did it. And I have actually since been back to Australia with my husband in a camper van, and we went up the west side of Australia. And again, it was a really wonderful experience, a very different experience to my first experience on the East Coast side. After which, I then came back and started working full-time with Richmond First School, which is a little primary school where I live. And I was being a teacher assistant for quite some time, over about 9 years, and then moved into speech and language with the children as well. But my main role on a sort of extra curricular basis was music and, again, art. So I would be running a lot of art clubs after school. I'd be running a lot of music clubs after school and doing a lot of productions for children as well. So after 10 years of working at the school, I decided that I wanted to move on and do my sculpture in a much more indulgent way. So after a really lovely ending to that particular place I worked, we put on a very large show which was called the Richmond Factor, and I got the band that I was in. We provided the music for the children, and I mentored the children, and the contest was an amazing evening and a lot of fun, and raised a nice big chunk of money for the school, which was lovely. After which, this led me to another project, because I happened to be going on a living awareness course for partners in a hotel that R&IB own, and I happened to meet a lady from KAB called Alison May. Told her all about what I was just doing with this project, and literally her ears pricked up, and she thought it would be a wonderful thing to do with the KAB. That's then when Kent Has Unseen Talent was born. I collaborated my idea with the KAB, and Alison May basically directed the project. I was the art director and music director. There was a lot of people involved. I managed to get my band involved again, so they was the guys that were providing all the music for the show. and I was asked to be a mentor and work with 10 contestants. Chose music and then worked with songs that were appropriate for them. And September 2010 saw us put this show on in the Hazlitt, and one of my guys actually won it, and it raised £4,000 for the KAB, which again was a really great project. There was a lot of work involved, but it really was a nice thing to do, and certainly helped me mix with other visually impaired people, which up until that point I'd not really done. So it was interesting for me to work with other visually impaired people, because I could see that the things they were going through, perhaps I will go through at a later time in my life, because at that time I could see that I had more vision than a lot of the guys that I was working for. But obviously that gave me a lot of empathy as well, and compassion. So it was a really great thing to do. After which I then decided, okay, I've done a lot of project-based things musically, and what I really wanted to do was to indulge in my sculpture again. So I decided to ask my husband if I could have a studio, and he lovely agreed, and this studio was built at the end of my garden. And basically I started to sculpt on a basis of wanting to exhibit my work. Now, strangely enough, it had been 20 years worth of sculpting and commission-based work, which this commission-based work is, all over the world. I've got pieces in France, in Germany, in Australia, but I'd never exhibited. So I thought this would be a really good platform to explore. So this is when I came up with my first exhibition, which was called Through the Eyes of Time. This exhibition had 12 new sculptures and 4 sculptures that already existed, so quite a large collection of work. It took me 14 months of constant sculpting on a very much 9-to-5 basis, and I ended up creating all of the work for this very large solo exhibition. I then took 6 to 8 months to actually put it on, find a venue. This particular one was put on in Maidstone at the Sessions House, and it was a really lovely venue to have, obviously being the headquarters of the council. A very nice building, and it was a really lovely room. It's very large, and it suited the amount of work that I had to show. I also had paintings on show at that time, because back then I had more vision, so I was able to paint still. And that actually was the beginning of my exhibiting career. After the Through the Eyes of Time exhibition, I realised that it needed to be seen a lot more all over the southeast. So I then started to look for other galleries that I could get involved in, and that is when my wonderful relationship began with Beach Creative Herne Bay. Now, I first met Gillian Wilson, who I went along and had a meeting with and told her all about myself and took my portfolio and showed her my work. This is when I arranged my first exhibition with them, and that was back in October 2014. And ever since, it's been a place that lies really deep in my heart, because it is such a beautiful building and such positivity, and the directors are lovely, and Mandy Troughton most especially. She's like a little godmum to me. She's wonderful, and I truly love to exhibit there. And now I've had 4 exhibitions already just at Beach Creative over the past 5 years. I've also had exhibitions in Sevenoaks. I'm artist in residence in York Street, Ramsgate Gallery, which is owned by Michael Sampson. I've also had an exhibition in Basildon, which was a solo exhibition. I've had exhibitions in Maidstone, and probably the most prestigious exhibition that I've had, which I think really did rocket my career, was the exhibition that I got in the House of Commons in London. That came about because my MP, Gordon Henderson, had come to my very first exhibition, which was the one in Sessions House. He fell in love with my work and felt so passionately about it that he wanted to ballot for it to be put in the House of Commons. This was quite a lengthy process, but he actually managed to make it happen. And from that, that was 2015 in the November. It was on the BBC, which was reported by Robin Gibson, arts and culture correspondent. And literally within a day, I'd sold 2 pieces because the client of mine had seen it on the television. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a much more established forum. And that is when things really started to take off for me. Shortly after the exhibition at the House of Commons, I happened to have a nasty fall. I fell down a 6-foot culvert, which unfortunately had a path that I was aiming to turn left down. Now, the sun was very, very low in the sky, and it's one of my nemesises when the sun is very low because it's so glary, it takes what vision I've got left out completely. And I turned left just too soon and I ended up going down this 6-foot culvert, the result of which was a torn ligament in my right knee, which was very painful and actually took a very long time to heal. And it was the healing time which I think gave me really a period of my life where I was reflecting on knowing that my vision was getting worse. So by this time I think they said I had about 8% vision at Moorfields Eye Hospital back in 2015. So over the years the percentage of vision has been deteriorating. And unfortunately, it was something that I really needed to address. So I contacted guide dogs and had a chat with them, and they discussed about perhaps putting in an application for a guide dog. So that's how I initiated meeting Maidstone guide dogs. Rachel Newton came with a colleague and we spoke about the application, and we also spoke about long cane training. Now, long cane training is a different story for me because over the years, most certainly in my 20s, there's been various people that have come from KAB trying to get me to use a cane of sorts. Initially, it was a cymbal cane, and then a little later on, it was a long cane, but neither of which I was having any of. I didn't want the stigma and the status that I felt went along with that. So I weren't having none of it. And I've always kind of struggled along and done the things that I do without using a cane. But I think this accident was such a nasty accident, and it took my knee a good 3 to 4 months to heal. It made me realise that actually it was disabling me by rejecting the cane. This probably leads into quite a nice link to the next song, and the song is called Tears Fall Inside.